welcome to The Marketplace with me, Lukman Haris, a show where we search for the hidden gems of the Bursa Malaysia, which is the mid and small cap companies. Today we talk to the Enra Group. Its President and Group Chief Executive Officer, Datuk Mazlin Mat Junid, joins me. Enra has been a presence in the local market for over 20 years. First incorporated in 1992 as Orlando Holdings Berhad, Enra was first listed on the second board of Bursa Malaysia Securities in that same year. The company then moved over to the main board of Bursa Malaysia in the year 2000. Today, Enra focuses on two main pillars, property and oil and gas. Its property arm is currently involved in numerous notable developments, including Shamlin Star in Cheras and Portland Chambers in London. Under its oil and gas arm, Enra has 7 subsidiaries, with expertise ranging from oil and gas services to chemical supply and trading and engineering and fabrication. Enra Group President and CEO Datuk Mazlin Mat Junid, thank you and welcome to The Marketplace.
Thank you for having us.
First of all, the two main pillars of the Enra Group, property and also oil and gas. Coming back to the latter, how is the current oil price volatility and uncertainty impacting you, if any?
Well, as you know, this current environment of low oil prices, or relatively low oil prices compared to 3 to 4 years ago, has impacted on a lot of the service providers, which we are. And in the sense that a lot of the service providers who have invested in assets to support the oil and gas industry in the past 10 years, they have gotten themselves into debt and of course, to support the growth of the industry. So when oil prices, within the space of 6 months, managed to halve itself, a lot of these service providers have had to recalibrate, our costs, and some just can't manage it because of the high repayments of their debt. So it's become a bit of a challenge, particularly those who's heavily invested in assets. But those who don't, like ourselves, we've managed to come up with solutions which reduces capex or capital expenditure for the oil companies, and these solutions now are beginning to take fruit, particularly in this $40 to $50 oil price environment.
So, what is the price that you considering to be the norm for the next 2 years in terms of planning your developments?
I think we will be extremely optimistic if oil will exceed $50 to $60 in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, when oil prices started to come down nearly 3 years ago, everybody said, "Oh, this is going to be a 3-year affair." Turns out it's a bit longer than that. My personal outlook on this is it will remain so probably till the next decade, because the big challenge to the oil industry really is renewables today. As you know, you've got renewable energy that's coming on strong, and I've always said that the biggest challenge to oil is actually batteries. So battery technology has improved tremendously in the past few years. As you know, battery is a storage of energy, no different than oil. Oil is a storage of energy. You just need to convert it. So as battery technology improves, reliance on oil is actually going to come down a bit more as well.
It's very interesting you mentioned that, because that leads me right to my next question, which is renewable energy, which is the way forward in terms of energy consumption. So what is the Enra Group doing to embrace renewable energy, knowing that it's going to be the next big thing moving forward?
Well, on our part, obviously, we try to limit ourselves, our own consumption of oil. And in a lot of the solutions that we have for the oil industry, we try to minimize as much cost as it is to take the oil out of the ground. We ourselves, have not looked at, because the technology that's in renewables is moving rapidly in many parts of the world. Today in China as well, they've realized that they need to move into renewables. Malaysia is catching up in terms of solar and other parts of the world as well. But that technology is really developed by a whole set of different people compared to the technology that you have for oil. So yeah, I think it's going to be exciting times ahead. But energy companies, and we are talking here perhaps people like oil companies, if they rebrand themselves as energy companies, they should really start looking at how to maximize on renewables and begin to look at lower dependency on fossil fuels.
Talking about going into new ventures, you recently collaborated with MRail to provide numerous services for rail and track transportation projects in Malaysia. This is your first foray into the rail sector, so to say, or the rail business. You're quite a newcomer, so are you confident that you will do well here?
MRail is a very well-established company. They've been around for more than 20 years, and they are headed by two very high-profile individuals in the country. They have done many thousands of kilometers of track laying, and their collaboration with us includes some of our engineering capability and looking at track laying with ECRL coming up and all the other works. It's still early days. We've just signed off that joint venture with them, and we hope we're coming to a bid position. More importantly, to be able to put us in a bid position, and with MRail's capabilities and track record of them laying tracks, we hope we'll get some work from there as well.
All right, we'll talk more about this when we come back. We have to take a short break. We'll return with Enra Group CEO and President Datuk Mazlin Mat Junid. The Marketplace will be right back. Don't go anywhere. That's it. Welcome back to the Marketplace with me, Lokman Haris. I've been speaking to the President and Group CEO of the Enra Group, Datuk Mazlin Mat Junid. Datuk, before the break, we talked about your foray into the rail business with MRail. And you mentioned bidding and also the high-speed rail. In terms of jobs, what have you got your eye on? Because projects like the Gemas JB Rail is exactly the projects that you can bid on, not to mention the HSR. Yep. So can you give some insights on this?
Well, precisely. We, as I said, we are now aligning ourselves to be in a position to bid on those jobs with the track records that MRail has. ECRL is one of them, and also the HSS. It's still early days. We're starting to talk to the government as well as the contractors, the main contractors itself. As you know, track laying is just one component of the whole project. We hope something will materialize very soon.
Let's move on to another pillar of yours, which is property development. Not too long ago, in March, you acquired 60 acres of leasehold land in Labuan for just over 7.5 million ringgit. Yes. Can you share with us what you plan to do with this plot of land?
There have been, initially the plan was actually to extend the ASEAN supply base, which is attached almost adjacent to our land. And this was an idea that we caught on about 3 to 4 years ago. Unfortunately, with the lesser dependency on supply bases and lower utilization of the supply bases, we've now realigned ourselves to look at our land, which is actually under the sea. We still have to reclaim this land. And with the potential possibilities of looking at being an IPP power supply to not only for Labuan but to Sabah and Sarawak.
Well, with the challenging economy now and the subdued consumer sentiment and also the rise in unsold properties, whether it be residential or commercial, a lot of developers have been holding new developments and new launches. So do you think such acquiring would be wise in this climate? I
think you're quite right there. We have just completed our big project in Cheras, Shamlin Star. We still have, out of nearly 700 units, we still have some still unsold. The real challenge in residential development is financing for the buyers. We can build affordable homes for them, but for buyers to get financing, it becomes a bit of a challenge for them. So we've now decided to take a breather from these sort of developments and looking more towards industrial sort of developments. We've identified a couple of areas that, we're looking in industrial, that building in whether it's schools, hospitals. It's still early days, but we need to keep on rolling our property development work. The other bit of property we have, which is due to be completed soon, is the one that our development in London at Great Tishfield Street. And that is, we envisage that to be done within 5 to 6 weeks.
That's the Portland Chambers.
That's called Portland
We'll talk a bit more about that after this. I want to come back to the IPP that you mentioned in your land acquiring in Labuan.
Yes.
Can you just share with us a bit more about this?
Well, there's a whole process of applying for this. We know there's an energy shortage coming up, particularly towards Sabah sector, and Labuan has got a couple of very old gas-fired power plants. This is planning for the future. So looking at something that's anything between 250 to 300 megawatts will suit Sabah's requirement for the next 20 years. But the planning has to be done now. We are fortunate that with a seaside frontage, that makes building a plant very, very efficient. And the process again, we have to go through the Energy Commission and secure feedstock for the plant. So at the moment, we already have some ideas in place. We have actually now engaged the consultants to start working on this. And that's one of the users of this land that we have. So we need to be a bit versatile in what we want to do with some of these assets that we have. I think sticking to one plan and forcing it to work is not going to be a guarantee of success. So we're always versatile. Our management, our board are quite agile in thinking of how we can monetize some of these assets.
Are you in a little bit to share what kind of power generating plant that you plan to build?
Well, obviously, the gas-fired plants are probably the norm nowadays, and we're looking at that possibility because, again, it also depends on the feedstock and how much is available for us to get this feedstock.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, President and Group CEO of Enra Group, Datuk Mazlin Mat Junid. And that's it for this episode of The Marketplace. Send us all your feedback on all our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at 501 Awani. Download our apps, you can see there, available on Google Play and also the Apple App Store. Listen to this interview on your podcast as well. Simply search for Astro Awani or The Marketplace wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Lukman Haris. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.